The bundle file for this application currently includes all the front-end dependencies like React, Axios, and the Lodash functions we used. And we need to deploy that to production. After that, we're going to make changes to our application and deploy a new version of this bundle.js file. However, if you think about it, when we deploy version 2, we're likely going to change just our application, not the vendor dependencies like React. When we deploy a new release of this bundle.js file, we would be invalidating the whole cached file in all browsers that used the application. This is wasting some good cache. We do not need to invalidate the whole thing. We only need to invalidate the part of bundle.js that we actually changed. This is why it's currently a good idea to split this bundle.js file into two files. One that represents our own application, and another to represent all the vendor files that would not be changed as frequently as our application. Webpack can help us with that. We need to do two configuration changes to make that happen. First, instead of this array in the entry file, we can do an object here. This object will have two properties. One property for the vendor files and another property for our own app. So we can take what we had before here and make that our own app, and then introduce another array for all the vendor files. Actually, the Babel polyfill is also a vendor file. So I'm going to remove it from here, keep just the DOM renderer in our app, and put the Babel polyfill file in here. And also, we need to add React DOM. We also used prop types and Axios. And we also used a few Lodash functions. So we have lodash.debounce, and we also have lodash.pickby. All of these packages are vendor files that would not be changing as frequently as our own application. We also need to include this comments chunk plugin for Webpack to do the actual separation. This receives a number of options. I'm going to copy an example here. We're doing this explicit vendor syntax. So we did the vendor, and now we need to include this comments chunk plugin. This is something that we need to include as a plugin. So we do plugins is an array of plugins, and we include the comments chunk plugin. And we need to require Webpack, since we haven't done that before. Now, before we test, since now we have two entry points, the output should be two files, not just one bundle.js file. With Webpack, we can use this syntax. We put name in square brackets like that, and that means for every entry point, generate an output file that matches the entry point property in here. So we'll have vendor.js and we'll have app.js. So I think we can go ahead and test. Just restart Webpack. And now you should see two bundled files, app.js, which is our own application, and vendor.js, which is everything else. Now we also need to change the views EJS file to include both of them. So we need vendor.js, and we also need app.js. This way, when it's time to release a new version of our application, we only change app.js. Vendor.js can stay cached in all the browsers that previously used this application. However, when it's time to invalidate the cached version of app.js in all the browsers, we need to do something different here. Otherwise, the browsers might not actually fetch the new release. So it's a good idea to have something like a version here. So version 1. And also, this is something that you want to do for vendor.js as well. So when we release version 2 of our application, we would change that into 2. And when we upgrade the dependencies of our application and release a new vendor.js file, we would change that version separately. This versioning is also something that you should automate as well. And to do that, one option would be to generate this index.ejs file every time we release a new app.js file and make that part of the production build for this application. Now that we have two bundled files, we need to ignore these separately. So public vendor.js and app.js, because both of these are generated content that should not be in source control.